All right, so let's jump into it. Call receiving. So let's look at your primary responsibility as an emergency communications specialist. You're going to answer, accept, respond to incoming calls for service. You're going to gather important information, and you're going to provide answers, referrals, or additional resources to callers who are seeking assistance. That is you as, and you're going to hear me say this, a call taker. Now, at your agency, that title may be different because we've been using the term emergency communications specialist, which is a general term for everybody who works in your center. Some agencies, especially the larger ones, have specific job titles based on your responsibilities. So for example, in this unit, because we are talking about call receiving, I'm going to use the term call taker because that's what it is you're doing. Now, when we get into radio dispatch, I'm going to call you a dispatcher because you are dispatching out resources, okay? So when you hear me say call taker, it's the person who is answering the phone. When you hear me say dispatcher, that means the person who is actually dispatching out resources. So, in general, this is how the workflow happens in a communications center. A call is initiated, which means that there's a phone call that comes in, a text is received, or there's some type of non-human initiated event. What? Telematics. So some of you may be familiar with OnStar. When a vehicle is in an accident and they are equipped with OnStar, it automatically generates a notification to your center. So that's what I mean by non-human initiated events. So that call is received at your communication center at the PSAP. The call is answered, either it's a 911 call or a 10-digit line, it's a transfer or a text. That call is processed by you, the jurisdiction who is responsible for handling that. It could be potentially transferred to another agency. For example, you only answer and only respond to law enforcement calls, but the call that you've answered actually needs or requires medical assistance. So you're going to transfer that call to that medical dispatch center. And then the call is processed by AHJ, agency having jurisdiction. So one of the first things that we need to focus on when we're talking about call receiving is accuracy. It is vital to the safety of the responders on the street and the public that you are accurate with your work. This is especially true when taking information from callers reporting crimes and suspects. The suspect description that you broadcast or the details of an incident which you document in a call for service can be used by many units in the field. They're going to take that information to potentially detain someone, search a vehicle, or possibly use deadly force. The consequences of being careless could be disastrous. When you record the information in a call for service, there may be times when capturing the caller's exact words will be important. And in other situations, you may paraphrase the caller's comments in order to provide succinct explanation of what they are reporting. Follow your training program in your center, and you will start to be able to discern when I need to be exact and when I can paraphrase. And as we go through this unit especially, you'll start to understand how those two things differ. It's vital not to make assumptions or judgments about the caller's situation. Not only is that not our job, but it also places both the caller and the responders in jeopardy if we assume incorrectly. Now, accuracy matters. Guess what? NENA has a standard for this. NENA has a standard for location and address verification. The emergency communications specialist or the call taker shall verify all location information conveyed about the emergency in order to obtain the most accurate dispatchable location for emergency services response. That basically means we don't know where to send help if we don't know where to send help. We have to have a location. And you're going to hear this concept reviewed over and over and over because I can't send you help if I don't know where you are. And we're going to talk about different ways that we can gather that information, because there will be times when somebody is not going to know where they are. How many of you, and I'll be the first to admit, I've been on the job for 28 years. But there are times that when I travel across the country as a NENA instructor, and say I'm driving across the state of Tennessee and my car breaks down, and I have no idea where I am. And if any of you have ever been in Tennessee, you will know that there are vast expanses of a whole lot of beautiful country, but there's no address. There's no Starbucks that I can reference. There's no nothing. So if I call for assistance, the very first question that call taker is going to ask me is, where are you? Well, there's a tree, and there's a bush, and there's another tree. Not helpful. So that call taker is going to have to work me through determining where I am before they can send me any help. Maybe they're going to ask me, is there a mile marker that you remember passing? Can you see one from where you are? Is there a billboard or some other landmark that will identify where I am on a freeway? They may ask me, well, where are you headed? Well, I'm traveling to Nashville. Well, where did you leave from? Well, I left from Martin. Well, how long ago did you leave? About 10 minutes. What road were you on? I have no idea. But they'll be able to backtrack from that information and pinpoint where I am on that roadway. Verification policies and associated procedures can vary based on dispatch center coverage, because sometimes, like the example I gave, in a very rural area, that process is going to be significantly different if I'm in Boston or New York City or Los Angeles. So while the standard is written to establish some consistency, we also understand that that's not really possible in every situation, but it does provide us with some guidelines that we can follow. A verified location means that the call taker has taken active measures to confirm the call provided location is accurate, and the caller has actively acknowledged or corrected in some fashion the location information provided. We'll get there. You'll understand what that means in a few minutes. Accuracy matters. Most agencies have a written policy that requires the call taker to verify both the incident location and the caller's location and phone number, because sometimes your caller may be calling about an incident that happened here, but they're not there anymore. They've gone home. Perhaps they're calling you, they were on their way home from the grocery store, and they drove through an intersection and they saw that a bicycle was laying on the sidewalk. And it didn't look like it belonged to anybody, and they were concerned that somebody may have had their bicycle stolen, or at least it's found property, but they continued to drive home. So in the call for service, the location of where the incident is happening is that intersection. But the location of the caller is going to be at their home address. Well, why is that important? Because we may have to respond to the location where the caller is, as well as the location of where the incident occurred. Some ways to verify this information are these types of questions. To make sure we're sending help to the right location, can you verify your address? Can you repeat your phone number so that I can make sure that I have it correctly? Can you repeat your address so I can make sure that we know where to send help? We don't repeat the address for them because in many situations, especially in high stress situations, the caller would just say yes without hearing what you're actually saying, because their thought process is not where am I, but what's happening. It's important to have the caller, the citizen who is requesting assistance, repeat their address. Always follow your agency's policies when it comes to verifying information. Accuracy and time matter. Call takers often work under a time constraint due to the urgent nature of many of the calls received. But remember, it doesn't matter how quickly you gather information if you get the information wrong. Now we're going to start to discuss the 5 W's of call taking, and you'll get a better understanding of how these two concepts work together.